I'm terrified of birth and labor. How bad is it actually? So this is a question that I got asked the most when I posted on my Instagram stories asking you guys what questions you had related to pregnancy and birth and delivery. I had so many questions asking about the pain level, asking how scary it really is. Two of the specific questions were, I want kids, but I want to know the pain level. I'm scared. First time pregnancy over here, and I'm terrified of giving birth or possibly a C-section. So this is something that I was definitely super scared of when I got pregnant for the first time. I was 19 years old. I was not ready for it. I was not planning for it. And so I really had done zero research. And when I found myself pregnant, I was absolutely terrified of what was going to come, especially when it came to labor and birth. And the funny part is when it actually got to labor and birth, I found that pregnancy was by far the hardest part and labor and delivery was the easiest part. Now, I was pretty lucky to have a pretty short labor and birth in general, but I've actually met quite a few women who said that birth and delivery was actually the easier part because pregnancy can often be so difficult, and honestly the pain levels that you endure during birth are really not that bad. The truth of the matter is that everyone talks about the pain levels of birth and delivery, and this is something I've actually been reading about in different birthing books lately where they talk about how it's something that's actually so hyped up in our culture that women in general just have this pent up fear and anxiety that actually leads to longer labors, worse births, and more pain because our bodies are already tensed up. We're in so much fear, and because of that fear and because of that tenseness in our bodies, it actually leads to more pain, and we really start fighting against ourselves. When you're in labor, you really need to open up, to let yourself go, to relax, to be calm, and the opposite happens when we're in fear. And I definitely noticed that during my first two births. So this time around, I've been doing a lot more research. I've been reading different books, and I've also been really working on telling myself it's not a painful experience. Now, it's been long enough since I had my last two births. I don't really remember the pain that much. I would say don't worry about it because I was so scared for it. And in hindsight, I can see how that fear led to me being really detached during my birth experiences when my births were both actually some of the most empowering and beautiful experiences that I've ever had. And I'm actually really excited and I can't wait for my third birth. I've been reading a book called Hypnobirthing. I'll try to link it in the description box below. I don't think personally I'll be trying to use the hypnobirthing method. However, I love the book and I love the research behind it. I would recommend reading that book, especially just the first few chapters, going over the history of women and birth in general and how it became such a feared thing when it used to be something that was really revered and seen as a beautiful experience for a woman to go through. And I think that part of the reason our culture is so terrified of childbirth is just because we don't view it as a beautiful thing anymore. We don't view it as a wonderful thing. And when we view it as something that's going to be terrible, ruin and destroy our bodies, it just becomes something that's so fearful that it actually kind of becomes that experience you've built it up to be. So something I'm really working on this time around is just my mindset. And I just try to really tell myself every single day how it's going to be a beautiful, empowering experience. It's going to make me a stronger woman, and I'm going to get to meet my baby at the end of the day. You know, it can be scary thinking about the unknowns. I would be lying if I said that even now, after having two really great births, that I wouldn't be scared about the what ifs and if things go wrong, if I end up having to have an emergency C-section. But at the end of the day, I know that God's grace and love is covering us, that He has us in His hands. No matter what goes wrong, He is in control. And also I know that my body was made to do this. I think that's something else that our culture really doesn't tell us, but as women, biologically, our bodies were made to do this. And there's actually so many reasons that childbirth is really good for us. So it really just comes down to the mindset around it. And I really hope that if you are someone who's terrified of birth, that you would try to really learn mindsets to go away from the fear and start to really embrace it and love it and see it as something that is going to be really beautiful and empowering, because it is. And even though I was more detached from my first two births, I did find them to be really empowering and just amazing experiences, and I can't wait to do that again. The next most popular, most asked question was, have you had or are you interested in home birth? So my last two births were not home births, but this one, Lord willing, will be one in this home. I'm so excited for that. I'm planning on doing a water birth, so I'm still in the midst of looking for a birthing pool. Worst case scenario, or if it ends up being too expensive, I know I could always do it in the tub, although our tub is a little small, so I'm not super sure, but overall, I'm really excited to do a home birth. I found a really great midwife. She actually worked as a delivery room nurse for quite a few years. And then she ended up becoming a midwife for the next few years, and she had her third child as a home birth. So I thought that was really cool that she's actually had a home birth. Plus, she's working with other women with home births, and she's just the most amazing, sweet person. I find her someone really calming to be around. I'm someone that really feeds off of other people's energies and just kind of the vibe that they give off. So I definitely made sure to meet her before I signed up with her or hired her officially. So I met up with her. I had a bunch of questions that I wanted to ask her. I wanted to make sure she was medically equipped to help me in case I were to hemorrhage after birth, or I wanted to make sure that she knew how to resuscitate a baby if the baby is born not breathing or with the cord wrapped around its neck. So there's just different things I wanted to make sure she was certified and knew how to do, and she did and does. She has medication. She has an IV that she can give me if something were to happen. Lord willing, nothing will happen. I've never had complications before. I've actually bled less than the normal person with both my last births, and I stopped bleeding usually within the first couple weeks. So really overall, I'm not expecting the worst, but I definitely want to be prepared, and we are very close to a hospital. She has a couple hospitals that she actually recommends as well. So if anything were to happen last minute and we would need to be transferred, that's always an option, but hopefully that's not going to be an option. Hopefully we will just have a beautiful redemptive home birth, because I would love that. My last two births were not traumatizing by any means, but I definitely through each one really realized how much I wanted a home birth. My mom had mostly all home births, but she actually had some complications. Some of her organs literally weren't shaped right, and because of that she had super long births with all of her home births. So just a lot of complications there, which is what led me to do hospital births in the first place. My second child, I really wanted to do a home birth, and I ended up having a really bad experience with someone close to me who told me if the baby died it would be my fault, and it totally led me down a tunnel of fear that I never should have gone down in the first place. So I'm really excited for this home birth. Someone asked what my favorite part of pregnancy is, and this just makes me laugh because pregnancy, like if you ask me my favorite part of pregnancy, I just automatically birth. Like birth is my favorite part of pregnancy. I love that pregnancy is done and over. I have really sick, nauseous, low energy pregnancies. I'm not someone who enjoys pregnancy. I'm not someone who's glowing in pregnancy. If I look glowing at all, that's the makeup I use. I'm not glowing in pregnancy. I gain a lot of weight. I feel uncomfortable. It's not my favorite thing at all, but I love birth. I actually genuinely love birth. And I really love obviously getting to meet my new little baby. We are going to be having our gender reveal the first week of October, so I'm so excited to find out if we're having a girl or a boy. Right now we have two boys. I would love another boy, but a girl, that would be pretty awesome too, so I'm really excited to find out. Someone asked, how did your last two labor and births go? So my first labor and birth, I was 19 years old at the time. I was terrified. So what ended up happening was my water broke very dramatically, burst all over the place. I think it was like 8 or 9 at night. I ended up having the baby around 1 or 2 in the morning, I think. And overall, it was a very fast labor and delivery. I went to the hospital. I ended up getting the thing they put in your back. What is that called? The epidural. I ended up getting the epidural. I had a great experience with it the first time around, other than the needle hurts so bad. No one talks about how bad the needle hurts when they put that in your back. It's excruciating. And overall, something I did not enjoy about the hospitals was just being stuck with needles. I am someone that I have a complete phobia of needles, and that made both of my birth experiences much more traumatic than I felt like they needed to be, just because they put a lot of IVs in you, and going through with the epidural, there was just there's so many needles, and that was really one of the reasons that, especially after my second time around, I was like, I'm never doing this again. I'm never getting an epidural again. I don't want to do this ever again. Neither of my births were very invasive, which I really appreciated. I didn't want a lot of medical things being done unless it was absolutely necessary. Of course, the epidural was not absolutely necessary, but I felt like it was absolutely necessary because I was not equipped or educated in any way to take care of the pain levels, which was literally only my own fault. So first, labor and birth went really well. I took a really, really small dosage of the epidural because I wanted to really be able to feel the pain and the pushing. And I had heard other women have complications when they were completely numb down there, where they didn't really understand how to push because they were numb. So I really felt and wanted to feel a lot of the pain. So with the epidural, you have a needle in your back, and you have like IV in your back, and then you push a button and it gives you like dosages. So as far as I remember, I only took one dosage. Again, the birth and delivery went really fast, so I did not have to wait very long. I believe I took one dosage. I possibly maybe took more, but I don't think so. So by the time the baby actually came, I didn't feel the urge to push, but the doctor told me you're 10 centimeters dilated, go ahead and start pushing. I pushed for 7 minutes and the baby came out. My second pregnancy was a little different. I didn't have quite as dramatic of a water breakage. So my water broke, and I could tell because I kept feeling like I needed to go pee, but it was like every 30 seconds and it'd just be a little bit of pee. And finally I realized I think this is definitely my water. I did not start contracting. So my first time around, my water broke and I started having contractions right away. And I believe right away they were like 6-7 minutes apart. Maybe it was a little longer. But second time around, my water broke and I did not start having contractions right away. I think I started having some contractions by the time we went to the hospital, which was pretty soon after my water broke. And we were actually in the hospital all day, and my contractions didn't really get any worse. Or any harder or, more intense, which is what you want. You want that build up. You want your contractions to get stronger and harder and closer together, and that was not happening. And I was walking, I was squatting, I was on the birthing ball, and then towards the evening, I went into really active labor. I went into really hard labor, and within a few hours, I was pushing. I actually had the urge to push the second time around, which was a really cool feeling. Like I felt that overwhelming urge to push, which is actually a whole nother story because I don't really plan on pushing with my third baby. But again, that's another story for another time. But regardless, it was a really great birth. I pushed him out in 2 pushes. I had the epidural. It only worked on one half of my body, I believe. And again, I took a really small dosage. So I felt all the contractions. I felt all the urges to push, all those things. And second time around, I really just realized this was not necessary. Both times I pushed while I was on my back, and I really think that's gonna make a huge difference by not doing that this third time around, because that is not something that is good for you or the baby in any way, shape, or form. It's like the worst possible way you could give birth. So there's a lot more things that I've really educated myself on, which is something you really have to do through pregnancy. And that's something I don't think I really realized the first couple times. Like I kind of just thought, everyone's gonna tell me what to do, and nobody ever told me what to do. And then I kind of realized this time around, I have to actually research things like crazy. Who knew? Someone asked, do you breastfeed? Yes, I prioritize breastfeeding a lot. And thankfully it came very easily to me and to both of my kids. I did lose my milk supply very early with both of them. With my first one, it was around 4 months because of a really stressful situation that literally left me in physical, mental, spiritual shock. Like my body was in shock. It was a really traumatizing event that happened that I won't be getting into. So because of that, I did lose my milk supply, which was really disappointing. I think I was 8 months along. I can't remember how long I said I was the first time, but I was 8 months along with my first baby when that traumatic event happened and I lost my milk supply. Second time around, I lost my milk supply around 3 to 4 months old, which was much earlier, much younger. And that was actually due to me having hypothyroidism, which I went to a holistic doctor. I started getting on these supplements that completely healed me. I had so many side effects. Losing my milk supply was only one of them. But unfortunately, I didn't start on the supplements and I didn't start working with this doctor until after I had lost my milk supply. So it was too late to fix that. So I did have to do formula. I'm hoping this third time around I can do a year of breastfeeding. I do really enjoy breastfeeding, but it is something that takes up a lot of time. And I feel like that's the hardest thing. So I am definitely not someone that would want to breastfeed longer than a year. Even if my baby wanted to breastfeed longer than a year, even though I do enjoy it on one side, I would want to be done after a year. And I will admit, with my second postpartum experience, although I was completely heartbroken that I wasn't able to breastfeed and we had to switch to formula, it was easier on me physically because it does take a physical toll when you are constantly producing milk. Breastfeeding for me ultimately is not about whether I would rather do it or rather not do it for my own comfort, but just for the health of my baby. Since statistically it's just been proven over and over again how much better breast milk is for your baby. So that is definitely something I have and will continue to prioritize. Someone asked, what's your favorite part about being a mom? And I love this question. This is actually something that I'm very different from most women with, because most women will say their favorite part about being a mom is having a newborn and newborn snuggles and the newborn smell and the newborn scrunch and the newborn this or that. But for me, The newborn stage is a very difficult time, and I'm not the biggest baby person. I never have been. And it's so funny because when I first had a baby, I was so overwhelmed, and everyone was like, enjoy it while it lasts. This is the best part about being a mom. And I was like, this is the best part? Like, what? But for me, having a newborn, having a baby was not the best part. I do love my babies. I do love the newborn snuggles. I love, newborns are amazing. They're so sweet. They're so precious. They're so innocent. But newborns are not really my thing. Now, I will say my last two kids were both very colicky and very not sickly, but colicky, which just means they have lots of gas. They're in pain a lot of time. They're crying all the time, crying night and day. It's not really a fun time. I'm gonna be honest here. My favorite part about being a mom by far has been the toddler stage. My oldest is 4.5, and it literally gets better every day. The older he gets, the better it gets. I'm sure there will be some point where that will be my favorite stage, but so far I just say the toddler stage is my favorite stage. I really do genuinely love it, and I love growing in friendship with my children. I know someday they might reach an age where they're too cool for me, or there's always the possibility they could grow up and not like me or choose a very different life path and resent me. I don't know, I can't read the future, but I will say my favorite part now, and hopefully my favorite part in the future, is just the friendship I have with my kids, the experiences we have together, the love we have for each other, the things we do together. I love everything about having kids. I think they're awesome, and I'm really excited to have a third. I'm a first-time mom at 22 weeks. What do I need to know? So I think the most important advice that I could give someone who isn't a mom yet, who's about to be a mom, is trust your motherly instinct. As the mother, you grow a special bond with this baby. They literally grow from you. You're nourishing them. You have a literal physical attachment for 9 months. And because of this, you are going to know what's best for your baby. When I had my first baby, I really didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I had some very, very strong feelings about what I wanted to do for my baby, what was right for him. And some things family members disagreed with, some things doctors disagreed with. And in hindsight, I'm so glad I made those decisions that I did for my baby. Now, I'm not someone who's gonna sit here and say, you should do this, this, and this for your baby, and you should not do this, this, and this. There's a lot of things and reasons out there to do things a certain way, to go a more natural way, to go a more, do things the way your doctor said. Regardless, every baby is different. Every child is different. Everyone's physical health is different. And you as the mother is going to know what is best for that baby. So listen to your instincts, listen to what your body is telling you, listen to what you are feeling for your child, what is right for them. Obviously, do research, listen to other people's opinions, listen to your doctors. Listen to the people around you, but ultimately you have a motherly instinct that no one else has. My tip to you is really just listen to yourself. You will not regret it. You will not look back in life and be sorry you did that. Other than that, you don't need anything. Moms are really preyed on by companies and by baby products. You need the best bottle, and you need these baby clothes, and you need this wrap. But at the end of the day, if you have your arms and you're able to breastfeed your baby, that's all they need. They need lots of love. They need lots of care, attention. They want to be held. They want to be fed. They want to be full, warm, comforted, and that's about it. Someone asked, ideally, how many kids would you like to have? Ideally, that would be 4, but ideally, we were planning on waiting a lot longer to start having kids. So since we started so young, who knows, it could be up in the air for us to have more than 4. Personally, I think 4 would be a much easier number, and pregnancy has just been such a hard thing on my body. I don't see myself being able to do that many more times than 4. And my final question that I'm going to answer today is tips to get pregnant. Now, I am going to start this off by saying I am not someone to come to for pregnancy or fertility tips or tricks. I have terrible pregnancies, and I get pregnant very easily. I am very fertile. But one thing I will say is that taking care of your health is something that will help you become fertile. And there are so many experts out there. There's so many doctors, even just people on the internet sharing their stories, sharing what helped them. But getting your health in order is going to help you more than anything else. And I've always been a very healthy, active person, taking my supplements, going to holistic doctors, eating a clean diet, eating lots of vegetables, fruits, meat, protein. So these things will help you. But again, there's so many resources out there, so I definitely recommend you go to someone, and I definitely recommend you try to find a holistic doctor. It can be very helpful when it comes to things like fertility. I had 2 miscarriages before this pregnancy, and so I ended up going to a holistic doctor out here in Florida. Since we had just moved, I didn't have a doctor to really go to. And I just thought it was a fluke the first time around, but when I had my second miscarriage, I realized something was really wrong, and my doctor put me on a more natural prescription of progesterone, and that has helped me carry my pregnancy. I am now almost 18 weeks. So we're almost halfway to meeting the baby, and we're definitely out of that first trimester stage, which is when most miscarriages happen. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions related to pregnancy or birth, leave them in the comments below, and I'll either try to message you back and answer them, or maybe I'll make another video